Happy May the 4th, everybody. We're back reviewing Return of the Jedi. I just covered Empire Strikes Back. The video is up on our channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. If you want to check that out as well. And if part of me, if like the video seems like, my eyes was like constantly like, shutting is like, I came from work not too long ago, so it's like I think exhaustion, was trying to set in. I don't really drink pop like that, but I needed like some kind of like sugar intake to like keep me up, so I can at least do these two videos. And then I think I play some games. Not Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I'll say that for another day. But just play around with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and some Marvel Ultimate, Marvel versus Capcom 3, because I just kind of feel a need to get back into it. So I'll probably play that, a little bit after this. I'm excited for Doctor Strange 2. I'm seeing that tomorrow on May the 5th, or I should say Revenge of May the 5th, something like that. Something akin to Star Wars, Revenge of the 5th. But yeah, Return of the Jedi. Honestly, is my personal favorite. I know a lot of people put Empire as their personal favorite Star Wars film. I put it second because I think Return of the Jedi was like the culmination of like at least before the sequel trilogy, the culmination to the end of this reign of this empire. And even from like the Book of Boba Fett and like the Mandalorian, it's not completely hunky dory, but it's started to show like in case I don't bring it up when I go over it, because right after this, I'm gonna be like binging, seasons 1 and 2 of the Mandalorian, and then like going right into like Book of Boba Fett. So I might do all those 3 in 1 week. But yeah, because from those, it shows like like a slow transition, like like the rebellion is pretty much like having to do certain like things typically you probably will see from police, just to try to ease people into some sense of normalcy and out of the iron grip of the empire. And I like that because it shows, like, unlike this movie by itself, it just makes it seem like, oh, the evil has been thwarted and like everything's all hunky dory, but there is like a power vacuum at this point, and it's kind of like no different from like like the Marvel Netflix shows after like the Kingpin gets like put away. There's like a obvious power vacuum for like the Hand to try to rise up and take the city kind of situation. Anywho, we begin where we left off. Only like a year, unlike 3 years in between New Hope and Empire. This is only set a year after Empire into the Return of the Jedi, where everybody's on a hunt for Han, trying to get him back from Jabba the Hutt. And it's funny, I don't think like Jabba the Hutt is like the only Hutt. Yeah, no, he's not the only Hutt left. There's a couple of other Hutts still around, because given from the Clone Wars up to like the Book of Boba Fett, you'll think like Jabba the Hutt is probably like the only one left, because like a significant amount of them got, not say significant, there's only like a council level, like just whatever amount that would be considered like a council of Hutts, or like like a mafia full of Hutts. quite a few of them died during the events of Clone Wars. You don't see Jabba here during the original trilogy, but you see two of his cousins in the Book of Boba Fett. And so, as far as the Hutts are concerned, which already like by that point is losing like power as far as like the criminal element, because the Hutts always maintain like the boss of all bosses in terms of the criminal element in the Star Wars universe. Now like Jabba, who was like the head mafioso, he dies in this. The cousins are like their like grip is like flimsy at best. But we'll get to it when we get to it. But I don't know how they planned this out. I guess they thought Leia can easily, using the droids as a distraction, I guess, try to break Han out of the carbonite. But it's obviously like a setup by Jabba because he wasn't fooled and somebody's going to try to rescue him. So, but he's released from carbonite. He's got carbonation sickness, or, I think that's what they called it. So he's like trying to, get warm. He's like, temporarily blind. And I love like, Harrison Ford's role. I think, Indiana Jones and Star Wars is probably like my favorite roles that I've seen Harrison Ford in by far. I think like The Fugitive would be a close third. But it's like you see it's like, he's still trying to be slick with it. It's like, Jabba is not buying it anymore. He's through with Han's bullshit. He's like Jabba, like, I got you, okay? And I know it look bad right now, but like, just, let me like, and it's like, it's like, I like that. It's like, it's like, I don't know. It's just the way Harrison Ford does it. It makes it so fucking cool. And he's got that kind of like swagger on it. And speaking of swagger, of course, I gotta point out that, because Kylo Ren kind of does it, or Ben Solo kind of does it in Rise of Skywalker. Is probably like one of the few good things that I've seen in that film that I actually, smile at, where he does that, like, like the Han Solo nod, and it's like, I freaking love it. I freaking love it. But Harrison Ford is like awesome in this role. It's like no other person could. I think Al Pacino was first requested, asked to be cast as Han Solo, but he turned it down. I could be wrong about that, but like I heard from somewhere, I can't, like a very, very long time ago, that they wanted Al Pacino at first, because I'm pretty sure around this time Al Pacino was like, like a major rising star. Like it's kind of like the way Tiffany Haddish is currently, where like everybody wants her in damn near everything, but it's like he turned it down, and I'm glad. I don't think anybody but Harrison Ford could have made Han Solo such an icon like Harrison Ford did. But then Luke shows up. Like, I don't know what was their plan here. It's like, okay, you send the droids in to try to like, hey, this is your warning, and it's like, it's, but it's like a distraction to, have Leia just try to sneak him out. But it's like, obviously that didn't work. It was like, what's the point of all that? I don't know. Like, I really wish there was some kind of like, prior to this, we see some kind of like battle strategy. So we'll see like what was Luke's line of thinking as far as trying to rescue Han. But then Luke shows up like a boss. And I guess like after, during the period of trying to search for Han, because he lost his lightsaber after he lost his hand against his fight with his father. Which, by the way, like once again, Vader is his father. Spoiler alert, obviously. But, that, rule with me, because he wants to, because everybody, like, Vader is not an idiot, or Anakin is not an idiot. Even though he succumbed to the dark side, he understood to a degree. Because, like, if you read any of the tie-in comics, Darth Vader specifically, because, like, as far as, like, Star Wars comics that I'm reading, it's primarily the Darth Vader one, that I've been, like, looking into, throughout the past, like, year and a half almost, where it's like, he understood that the, Emperor, as you've seen in, like, the previous, like, shows and movies, that he's always looking to trade up for a newer model of an apprentice. Because, he already had, like, Dooku, which is weird because he had Dooku and Maul, but Maul was the one who was, like, by his side for the most part. But he had, like, Dooku waiting in the wings to, like, take his place, I guess. But that was never understood because it's like two is when it comes to like Sith, it only should be two, a master and an apprentice. But as soon as like one of them like falters, the newer models like already been groomed to the point where it's like I'm ready to like replace him. That's why he had Anakin kill Dooku. It's like you lost, and it's like I have no use for you anymore. And it's like Emperor played like the long game when a lot of these plans, especially when it came to his apprentices. Like he knew Dooku probably wasn't gonna last long, because like there's certain qualities that Dooku has that the Emperor really didn't feel the need for. It was certain things that each of the previous apprentices lacked that did not make them at least complete suitable apprentices until he saw young Anakin, and he made that little subtle line in Phantom Menace. I'll be watching your progress very closely. And as soon as because he's the chosen one, all this raw power, more so than even Yoda, and just like only trouble is like him fine tuning it, or at least managing his emotions to keeping him from like faltering, which he did. But at the point when it comes to like Vader level, he had like the kind of, as I mentioned, like in like previous films, like he had the qualities, Vader had the best qualities of each of like the Emperor's lackeys, Grievous, Dooku, and Maul, all roped into one, and fairly none of their weaknesses, until he realized Luke was his son. And then Anakin immediately, because he already knew, because I don't think many people even pointed that out, because I don't even think I even pointed it out when I like to say I think I did in Revenge of the Sith, but in case I didn't, that moment when he's pleading to Padme, like, we'll rule together. He still succumbed to the dark side, but he's still in his mind like, I'm not dumb. I know this fucker's gonna it's not something like I want around, but like with her by my side, we can overthrow him, and like we'll rule the galaxy the way I see fit. But that didn't pan out well. Now he sees his son, fairly developed Jedi in his own right. And it's like, we'll rule the galaxy as father and son, and we'll defeat the Emperor together. And it's like, it's still Anakin. It's like, that's why, like, Luke Skywalker is such an incredible hero, because he saw like the good, like, still in Vader. He haven't completely wiped it clean, as we've seen, like what I just mentioned. He's still there. It's twisted, in a way, but it's still there. And he, Luke is just, spend most of like a good 10 minutes of the movie trying to pull that back out. That's been buried by hate, and like just, buried with hate, and you just gotta dig that out. And it's like, but he had to like remind, because like it's something that was never taught, or he needed reminding of, is that, because he felt like he's like kind of like, that's what like the Emperor kind of abused during like the prequel trilogy. He felt alone, and like nobody cared, or like like you felt like nobody trusted him. All these kind of things, like the Emperor ended up manipulating to lead to where he is. And like Luke says something like, I'm here, you're my father, I love you, I'm not going to let you try to kill me or my friends, I'm not going to let you go any further down this path, because like I know that's not you. I'm going to set these kind of like boundaries here, but I'm not going anywhere, I'm not leaving you. And it's like echoing Padme when her final words was like, there's still good in him. It's like something that even Padme, who's not attuned to the Force like that, can still, when she is not with the Force, it's with her heart. She can tell that it's still good in him. And it's like I think I brought that up in the Revenge of the Sith. It's like, you see later on Luke echoing those same sentiments, but he managed to pull off something that nobody else was able to do, which shows like a mark of his character. That's why like I kind of felt so disappointed in how he what the writers did with Luke in Last Jedi and Return Skywalker, Rise of Skywalker. But anyway, they managed to, you get like the whole iconic look of Princess, a slave Leia, but while like they, Luke tried to come in like a boss, clad in black, with like the glove hand where his robotic arm is. I guess he, throughout that year of gap year, he kind of like nixed the fake fleshy hand, and and like accepted the metal prosthetic, but just to not call attention to it so much, at least make other people feel more like at ease or whatever. He puts on a glove. It's more so for like movie purposes, but anyway, he was on a trapdoor, where the Rancor is, and of course, if you watch my Bad Batch review, and I pointed that out as one of the episodes, you get to see like the young Rancor that was hand delivered to Jabba's assistant that you see here. I forgot his doggone name. Because like this is like the first time you see him was in like I think Bad Batch, and this is the second time you see him officially. Well, this would have been the first time years ago, but timeline wise, it's the second time you see him, and the third time you'll see him is in like a Book of Boba Fett. And he, and Luke ends up killing the thing, which I brought up in the Bad Batch review, season 1 review, is that it's like, man, that's gonna be tragic knowing that this little Rancor is the same Rancor that will die by the hands of Luke Skywalker. And it's like crazy how that works out. And so Jabba decides to like try to toss Luke, Han, and Chewie to the Starlight Pit. But of course, like, they broken through their bonds. I guess this added to their. I think all this is like a setup. Like they plan to get to this point. Like I don't know. Luke hidden his new lightsaber inside R2D2 to chuck to him. I still remember like this from Family Guy when they was making fun of this, where it's like do this like little nods like hmm, 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 hmm. And it's just like I was like, God, it did kind of went on. It's so freaking funny. Uh, and Luke, manages to slip through the bonds, get his lightsaber, and like start mowing down some bad guys. Breaks free of Chewie and Han. Han like battles blindly, but ends up because a lot of people point this out like so many years ago, and for such a long time, it felt like this supposed badass bounty hunter Boba Fett that we've seen from the Clone Wars, him being groomed to be like since a little kid trying to learn the ways of a bounty hunter, and him becoming like a most feared bounty hunter by his adulthood, getting taken out like a bitch and fell into the Sarlacc pit until years later we see him in The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, him actually doing some baller shit just to redeem himself. And of course Lando was there, he undercover and everything like that. He's helping out. And then Leia, while the chaos ensued, is the one choking out Jabba the Hutt and killing him. And it's like, man, it's like this big time gangster again taking out, like, well, not like a bitch like Boba Fett, but still though, it's like, wow, what an end to this guy who's supposed to be like the most feared gangster in like the galaxy. I remember having like a toy Jabba the Hutt as a kid. I don't recall what happened to it. I'm pretty sure it broke or something like that. It was way before, because this is around the time I had like action figures and stuff like that before I was introduced to video games. Once they rescue Han, they go off, and well, the others go to rendezvous with the rest of the rebellion. Luke goes back to the Dagobah system to go talk with Yoda, because he thinks he got a little more training to do. He goes to Yoda, and he's already on the edge of, he's on his deathbed at this point. He's like, like a little over 900 years old, and I think this is like the probably natural lifespan of the species, because they live, outlive a lot of people. And I imagine outside of any kind of like happenstance with like outside threats, Grogu will probably live about that long. So Grogu will probably outlive almost everybody in the franchise. And I think like Chewbacca species lives a pretty long time themselves as well. So those two particular species like live for a very long time. I imagine like those two will probably be like the very last ones around long after everybody else is long dead, or at least their offsprings kind of like fill the role, and that kind of thing. I'm like, hope the glare is not a bother. I don't know what is going on, but anyway, let me see. Oh, anyway, whatever. I can't deal with that right now. So, Yoda confirms to Luke, like, yeah, Vader's your father, and you have a sister. But, Yoda doesn't want to say himself. Long after he passes away and joins with like the Force. He's visited by Obi-Wan, and like he explains that they had to separate you guys. You had to separate you two because like after the situation with like the Jedi purge and everything like that, and we didn't. You two were our last hope to like try to bring peace to the galaxy after the failure of our order and the downfall of Anakin Skywalker, who's supposed to have been the savior in the first place. So we had you two as a backup plan, and we had to make sure we keep y'all as safe as possible, and which means keeping y'all separate to avoid any detection by, the Emperor or Vader. So, but at this point, you have to do what we failed to do, and you have to kill Vader and the Emperor to become like a full-fledged Jedi or whatever, a Jedi Knight or whatever. And Luke was like, "No, I'm not killing my father." And it's like, Obi-Wan like, then all is lost. And it's like, and right at that moment, it's like, man, they even after all this time and you being part of the Force now and everything like that, you still are like operating. You and Yoda are still operating on that old freaking mindset that caused like the downfall of your order in the first place. Like you feel like you learned, but you didn't learn. You half learned, or you didn't learn that part. It's like, Luke had to go his own way to deal with this. The way y'all tried to like eradicate him, which kind of further fueled Anakin's anger. That you were so quick, just like you saw how they did with Ahsoka. They were so quick to judge and condemn and cast aside without fighting for her, because like Anakin was the only one who was like wanted to pursue further, because like he knew there was more to this, because like you work with this person for such a long time, and like this person, you act like she hasn't more than 10 times earned your trust, and that's just bonkers to me. And then you try to feed that same BS to Luke and try to like, no, you kill this fucker, which I get it. And like this, not, saying like Vader to some people's eyes have it coming, considering all the death he wrought, killing, Jedi, the, many younglings or fucking children, killed fucking children, like a whole classroom full of fucking children. Like he held, in his own warped view, bringing order to the galaxy, he ended up like subjugating and like, instilling fear in the populace, and by and large, killing anybody who interfered. It's like, you're, like, of course, like some people's eyes, he deserved to get his head lopped off. But like Luke wanted, to find another way, because he saw what Padme saw, that he hasn't completely, even though he changed his name, he doesn't like going by Anakin anymore. It's still in there. And we'll go over Kylo Ren, because it's like kind of like the polar opposite. Like he's trying to embrace his dark side, while Vader is trying to. Well, I was like, Kylo Ren is trying to repel his good side, so he can try to force his, the dark side to come to him. But it's just not working, because despite his like the evil things he's done, it's like part of him is kind of like trying to, like his soul, unlike Vader, who had like a downfall, Ben just like had like a falling out that just needed like a decent conversation or mitigator or something like that. And obviously it's not working fully. He's still like, his good side still trying to force him back, while the dark side for Anakin was pulling him in. But there's still some bit of resistance still there that Luke saw. So, they all meet up at like a rebel base where they go over the plans of taking on this next Death Star, and this is where the whole Bothans die for the second set of plans kind of thing. That's where I got confused when I did a review of Rogue One. I'm thinking like, where's these supposed Bothans? And it's like, Bothans, got the plans for the second Death Star, not the first. So they need to like shut down the shield in order to like on a that's like located. It's like this power grid on the planet moon this on Endor that was like set up to power like the shielding on the second Death Star. Nothing can get in or out, without like the Empire say so. So they need to like, they go to Endor to try to like set up camp and like root out like the Imperials there. They come across like the Ewoks, obviously. Now, I want to say this right now. Unlike maybe my older generation that's like, a decade above me in my generation, because lots of them, maybe some people in my generation too, don't like the Ewoks. It's about as much as majority of like the masses of Star Wars fans don't like Jar Jar Binks. And it's like, to me, I think I don't mind Ewoks. Maybe it's because the whole Battle of Endor film or like Ewok, side stuff. Maybe because I didn't watch any of that. That's probably why, Ewoks never bothered me. I don't really care to go see it, really, because it doesn't seem like very interesting. It's kind of like the Star Wars Christmas special. I've seen clips of it, and I was like, nah, I can do without watching the full thing of this. But because the way, like, Lucas invented the Ewoks and like Jar Jar, there's two distinct things that make the Ewoks more likable, because they actually look appealing, because they're just big teddy bears, and their voices isn't like ear piercing every time they open their fucking mouths. Unlike Jar Jar, it was like, "Where's I do it?" It was like that, like nails on a chalkboard. It's like chalkboard scratching up against another chalkboard. I could not handle him talking, and like without saying a free one syllable is like ear grating. These things are just a cuddly little things that operate on the Stone Age era. So I never personally had like a problem with the Ewoks. I think they're fine. I do think it's not even on the Ewoks. It's on more so the Empire giving like some whack ass armor to these troopers, and it's like, I see from like the Family Guy, Star Wars special, when it's like a funny moment when like some spears or arrows hit one of the stormtroopers, and it's like this armor is useless. Why do we even wear it? And it's like, yeah, it's like these are armor, and it's like they act like this armor from like cosplay, like you see at cons or something like that. Those would not protect you from most weapons. But if it's like in-universe stuff, these things should be some kind of metal alloy, or some level. I kind of want to look it up. Let's see, like, what the fuck is this stuff made of that would allow arrows? It's not like metal, high-tech arrows like you see from like maybe like Green Arrow or Hawkeye, mind you. It's like, sticks and stones, Stone Age bows and arrows. And they're going through them like cardboard. And of course, like, I don't mind like this other stuff, like these traps, like like these like logs slamming into like a AT-ATs and stuff like that. I don't mind that so much because they're using like their surroundings to their advantage, and it's not that dissimilar to like the Viet Cong, where they repelled the U.S. and all other invaders using unconventional means like pitfalls and all these sort of traps and all these booby traps and stuff like that. Despite their like a disadvantage technology wise. So that doesn't seem like too far fetched for me, but it's just like the armor penetration that shouldn't, unless you're going through the visors, maybe like because like the stones can probably pierce the glass. I can probably buy that depending on how accurate the Ewoks is with those things, but it's like the armor, it should be fucking metal, some level of metal, even if it's steel, regular steel. Because I don't think they have anything like adamantium or anything like that, but it should be at least steel, and like it should be like difficult to get through. With if it's anything lower than a blaster or a bomb. But they make friends with like the Ewoks, and Luke tells Leia the truth, like even, and then she's like, after he tells her like we're brother and sister, he's like, somehow deep down, I feel like I always knew. And then I remember Family Guy once again, and like Chris playing as like Luke Skywalker, is like, did you knew when you kissed me? I was like, well, and like Laura says, Leia's like, we're from Alderaan, we're kind of like the south of the galaxy, or some state in the south. And it's like, if they even said something like to that effect, I can at least you offer an explanation that, but instead of just letting it ride, that's different. But it's just like they didn't do nothing. So I'll turn on the ring light. Anyway, so Luke decides, okay, I am endangering you guys by being near y'all, because the Vader and the Emperor will sense me. The closer they get, they will eventually pinpoint me, and then all you guys are fucking dead. So I'm gonna go to them, at least give you guys a fighting chance to do y'all thing, while I handle my business dealing with Vader, because I'm the only one who can. So Luke turns himself in, and he has this conversation with Vader, and he calls him Anakin Skywalker. He calls him Dad or Anakin Skywalker. He, I think like maybe like a few times, prior to this, he probably called him Vader. But when he realized and come to an understanding of who this guy is to him, he refused to call him by this fake, visions that he put upon himself to hide who he really is. This inhumane name. He gives him his human name to establish you are a person. You are a good person. Your name is Anakin Skywalker. You're not this monster that you created or the Emperor kind of imposed on you. You are Anakin Skywalker. You are my father. And Vader's, it's like, I haven't gone by that name in years. Like, I'm no longer answered to that name. I killed Anakin Skywalker. And like, Luke doesn't believe that. Because like, Vader could have done a myriad of things to him, a long time ago, but he refused to do it. Because, anybody else, he would have just lopped their head off and been done with it. Because, you see previously in this film and prior two films, Luke is like not only his son, but it's the final connection, and Leia too. It's like the final connection to his wife, the person that he loved more than anybody, that he tried his damnedest, even going to the dark side in hopes to trying to find, even though it was like a manipulation by the Emperor, try to find a way to keep people from dying so he can always have her, because he already lost his mother. He felt alone, and like, even growing up in the Jedi Order, people like, didn't look at him as an equal. There's a whole myriad of things that kind of pushed him further and further into some psychotic kind of rage. And it's like, Luke is like, that last bit that he refused to like cast aside. That's why he's, willing to he's telling his Emperor, like, we'll bring him to the dark side. Like, we don't have to do this. We can bring him to the dark side. I will make sure personally. While on the side, it's like, Luke, come to the dark side. We'll overthrow the Emperor and we'll rule together as a family. Because he's seeking family, because like, for all intents and purposes, he doesn't view the Emperor. The Emperor is just like at best an associate or a boss. But by and large, he has no body. He has no kind of emotional connection to anybody. He severed that with Obi-Wan completely. But this is flesh and blood. And it's like he refuses to give that up. He will not let this one die like he let Padme die. So, of course, he brings him to the Emperor. Emperor is trying to like coerce Luke into, giving into his anger the same way he did with Anakin. But all this is like, that's not fucking happening. Luke, unlike Anakin, had people. I think that was the key thing. If Luke, was, born to slavery, like, he only has mother, and like, and she died while he was, away, and was able to go visit every once in a while to keep track of how things are going. Maybe Luke will have be more inclined to listen to the Emperor. But no, Luke had like Emperor, Uncle Owen for a significantly long time, well within his like early adulthood. He had Ben, looking out for him from afar, but he's still there. He had friends like Wedge, before most of them went off to fight in the Empire, fight for the rebellion. And then like during the events of the trilogy, he had Han, Chewie, R2-D2, C-3PO. He had a great support network that kept on growing. Eventually, you got Ahsoka, and it's like, unlike Anakin, who had people, but there's only a very few that he had any kind of ties, emotional ties with, before he eventually had to sever most of it, either manually or unwillingly. It's just like that give Luke an edge to refuse the enticing by the Emperor. Like his like poison words is not reaching to Luke. It's like, with an emotional support network that gave him like the confidence and like the emotional stability that Anakin lacked, all that gave him the strength that he needed to like not only repel the Emperor's advances but also reach his father. And like, you see certain moments since Luke, the moment that Luke gave himself up, you see like moments where like, Vader is just pondering for a second, and he's like, he says one thing, but it's like, you can tell, despite the mask, you can tell like he's like, all that is just rolling in his head. Things are spinning, and it's like things that emotions probably running that probably hadn't ran in such a long time. Things he probably thought was buried came flushing in little by little. And of course, you got like the whole situation with like, Han and Leia and the rebellion and the Ewoks fighting off the troopers and try to get that shield shut down. And yet Admiral Akbar is like, it's a trap. Yeah, you get all that stuff. What I really like was more interesting was the whole Luke aspect. To be honest with you, I mean, like the other stuff is fine. I'm not downplaying any of that stuff, but like everything with Luke and the Emperor and Vader is so engaging. I like you're so attuned. Because when I remember as a little kid watching with my father, I was so intuned in this particular part, and to this day, it was like it grabbed me. I was like hanging on every word of dialogue these three are having right now. But and of course, like Vader and Luke is battling, and of course, Luke is defending himself. He's not fighting Vader; he's defending himself. And it's like he's telling because like I said before, he's setting boundaries, but like he's telling like, I love you. I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm here, Father. Like, I refuse to fight you, but I'm not going to let you hurt me or Leia. But I'm not leaving you. I'm not abandoning you. And it's something that Anakin desperately needed. Not only to see presented, but also hear. Because Obi-Wan, in a sense, kind of gave up on Anakin instead of doing what Luke did, which could have probably helped in Revenge of the Sith. And like possibly, as I mentioned during my review for each season of the Clone Wars, it's like, and then of course like the prequel trilogy, like Obi-Wan seems more critical. He's acting more like a annoying big brother rather than a father, which Anakin probably desperately needed. And if Qui-Gon Jinn didn't die by Maul, he would have been that. Because Qui-Gon wouldn't have treated him like an older brother. He would have treated him like a father, which, something like Anakin lacked. Some kind of patriarchal structure, which kind of, he saw in Palpatine, because Palpatine exploited that, twisted what you want from a father on his head into a very disgusting thing, to where it's like feeding his ego, and telling all these, untrue stuff just to manipulate and fracture his relationship between him and the Order, and cause not infighting, but it's like distrust. And like it's not something what a father would do. He would encourage the son, but he also set boundaries. It's like, I believe in you. I'll trust you to handle this thing, but I'm here if you need me, kind of situation. And which is something that Luke is doing. And so, as Luke, like Vader kind of taunts him about like, oh, I will just go to Leia then. And of course, Luke refuses to have that kind of influence because Leia isn't trained at all the way he was trained. So she wouldn't be properly prepared to handle any kind of manipulation by these two. And so that kind of briefly sets Luke off, but he regains himself. But he ends up cutting off, ironically, Anakin's prosthetic hand. It's like the first time in a long time, Anakin lost a legit fight. And then Luke, took a moment without, giving in fully to his anger. He looks at his own prosthetic hand. He sees like I think it was slightly damaged in like a blaster fight or something like that. But he looks at his hand and it's like it's like he's just like me. Like he lost. I lost a hand just like he lost his hand. It's like we're just we come from the same cloth. Like father like son, and it's like I refuse to go down this route. I'm not gonna falter like my father faltered, but I'm not gonna give up on him. and that's the new hope that everybody wanted. That's been striving for since the beginning of episode 1. I was like, there is a new hope out there, even though it's like kind of Anakin Skywalker, but it's also kind of Luke Skywalker as well. And it's like that integrity that Luke had was he tosses his own lightsaber away, and he goes to the Emperor and say like, I'm a Jedi, like my father before me, like my father before me. And it's like kind of stabs him. Like, I'm glad like Vader's right there to listen. It's like great dialogue and like great acting from Mark Hamill. And it's like that always rang true to me. One of my favorite lines from Star Wars as a whole. I am a Jedi like my father before me. And it shows like knowing the love, the respect, the honor, and like that he has for his father, even though he hasn't spent that much time with him. He didn't have like that moment in his adolescence years, but the fact that he hadn't had like he had Uncle Owen, but it's like his true father he never knew, and he has him, and even though he's like a shadow of his former self, he still has him, and he doesn't want to lose that, and he can at least work. As in Luke's eyes, he can work in order to get that pulled out, and so he can have like a family and like fix things the way he sees how he can fix things, rather than the way Yoda or Obi-Wan want him to fix things. Because with Obi-Wan and Yoda, they would have just killed Anakin outright, but Luke found another way that they never either bother to consider or think it's like a fruitless endeavor. Considering how they view how far gone Anakin is without even trying. But then like Luke gets electrocuted by the Emperor, because like the look on, because I don't think anybody really consider this moment where you see that as soon as like Luke tells him like I'm not going to turn to the dark side. You failed, Emperor. And it's like the look on Palpatine's face. It's like the stunned look, how like I don't think anybody ever resisted his temptations before. It's like this dawn on him. It's like this never happened to me before. It's like, oh my, it's like, and it's like close to the actor of Palpatine in this, where it's like you got a stunned expression that slowly creeps into fucking furious. It's like if you won't join us, then you would die, and it starts zapping him, and then like you see Vader just looking on, and it's like he's like, you see like the mask on, at least in my head canon, I'm thinking like you see like Anakin's just crawling. It's like I imagine like in his subconsciously he's crawling his way back to the surface, and it's like you see his own son getting hurt, his own flesh and blood, his last connection to his wife that he cared above all else being nearly killed, and it's like fuck that, no, and he's like no, and he's just like chucks that motherfucker down that exhaust port shaft or whatever thing is called, and to his death. But this is where he fucking should have just died, and we already know what happened in like Rise of Skywalker. But it's like he should have just kept on fucking being dead. This is where it should be the end of the Emperor. But we'll get to that when we get to it. But like, this is Qui-Gon Jinn's, vision come to pass. Eventually, his like, the Anakin will bring balance to the Force. He did. It took a few decades, but he did. It took some weird turns and dark turns, but he did. But then I like this moment when, like, like, because Lando managed, as the shield goes down, they managed to slip in, take out like the power, you know, uh, you know, supply area, or whatever, and then going out while and leave other places, like, coming down like a stack of cards. You hear, like, Anakin just, like, tells him, like, Luke, take my mask off. I want to see you with my own eyes. And it's like, I didn't mention this in Revenge of the Sith, when, like, that mask was coming on. You can see through, like, the visor where it's like everything's all red, and it's like probably intentionally put in by Palpatine, where it's like, I want him to, like, always be angry, so I'm making sure he only sees red. But it's like he takes that off so you can see in, like, HD color, all shades, like a normal person seeing his own son through the eyes of a human being, of the eyes of Anakin Skywalker. And, like, tell him I'm sorry, and, like, like, how much he cares for him, and it's like he's glad he get to see his, the last thing he saw with his daughter was, torturing her, but it's like, at least he knows that she's all right. But the fact that he get to see his son through his own human eyes as Anakin Skywalker, at least once before he dies, meant a lot. And of course, like, Luke give him like a Jedi's burial on Endor, and everybody's celebrating through, like, the destruction of the final Death Star and the fall of the Emperor and, like, Vader, and the iron grip of the Empire. And it's like, Endor is celebrating, and they have, like, all this, like, the party and everything like that. A nice little addition to have them, like, cut to all these different cities that we seen throughout the franchise. As, like, you see Naboo, you see Coruscant, Endor, Tatooine, like, you see all these places that, jumping for joy, sending confettis and, like, taking down all these monuments to, like, the Emperor and everything like that. Like, just, like, the sheer, like, joy being had. It's just like, it meant a lot to a lot of people. Like, that foothold, that boot on their necks has finally been lifted, and it's like, the joy I can only imagine. It's hard to imagine. It's kind of like the way, like, you finally got Trump out of office. Like, it's just like you can breathe. You know what I mean? Is that moment? Like, picture that moment. Remember that. Recall that moment when it's like, it was official. This motherfucker's out of fucking office, and it's like, you can finally, you don't have to worry about the next issue with this psycho in the office. You can finally, like, breathe knowing that somebody who is competent, and we don't have to worry about any little fiasco every given second of the day. You can finally, like, that kind of thing. And then, of course, you see, like, Leia, Han, and everybody else, celebrating. And you see Luke looking on. You see, like, the Force ghosts of Yoda and Obi-Wan. And, of course, I like this, I remember some people having, like, issues way back then when they was adding this to the DVD box set, because this is still around the time people was, like, hating on, like, the prequel trilogy, and because they included Hayden Christensen's Force Ghost in this part, and I didn't mind it. I still don't mind. I think it was a greater addition, and no shade on, like, the original actor who was there for such a long time, and no shade to him or any of the family members of this guy, but it's just that, I don't know, it didn't ring, it didn't like, impact us as much as, like, Hayden Christensen. I think Hayden Christensen's kind of, like, usurped that position in like a big way, and to see him, as the Force ghost, it like it gives you some kind of sense of relief knowing that he turned good again, and like he's at peace with his close friends that he thought he severed any kind of emotional ties to, and he's like, you know, uh, he's by their side once again, and I imagine the joy Obi-Wan especially has, knowing he has, after such a long time, had his friend back, his brother. Uh, that would be a nice little, like, maybe like a comic book tie-in to see like just that, especially with like Ahsoka, knowing like Luke and Ahsoka, show up together, like that emotional payoff just to see Force Ghost Obi-Wan or and like Ahsoka, their expression knowing uh Anakin's final return before his passing, and like the emotional toll that would take on them. It's just like the emotional joy they will be enveloped in. So yeah, I mean that's the end of Return of the Jedi. Uh, Man, like I said, it's one of my favorite like Star Wars films. Once I'm done with all the reviewing of all this Star Wars stuff, once I finish up like Rise of Skywalker, I'm gonna do like a YouTube tier list of all the stuff that I've reviewed, like even including like the TV shows like Resistance and Clone Wars and Rebels and like Mandalorian and stuff like that. I'll put it out a ranking, like rank those and see, like you get to see which ones like I hold in such high regard personally. But anyway, let me know in the comments below what you thought of Return of the Jedi. Happy May the 4th. It was I thought about doing these two yesterday, but like no. I think it deemed appropriate to handle Empire and Return of the Jedi on exactly May the 4th. It seems very appropriate. So yeah, are we getting right into? Well, not right away. I think. Well, yeah, I will be going into Mandalorian season 1 and 2 and Book of Boba Fett next, but obviously next Wednesday or Thursday. But this Saturday I'll be covering season 1 of my spoiler review of season 1 of Moon Knight, as well as Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness this Saturday. I would say Saturday, late Saturday afternoon, just to give people time to like at least see it, and those who are probably already at the theater seeing it currently, so they probably won't be watching it right away. It'll be uploaded long after they get out of the theater, so it's more than long enough for like a good spoiler review to be uploaded. And then I got a new Mother's Day movie this Sunday to put out for you guys, but probably later that Sunday afternoon, because I'm going to be going, it's Mother's Day officially, but I'll be going out with my mother and my birth mother and my brother out to lunch with her. But when I come back, I will be uploading a new spoiler review movie for Mother's Day month. So I will see you guys then. I hope you look forward to those. Thank you all for those recent subscribers. You guys are just are amazing. I appreciate all of you, the new views, the new subscribers, and also if you follow me on Patreon, at some point very soon, I thought about doing this as a separate video, but I might as well just include it here. But I will be on my Patreon. You following me in the link in the below. I will be doing like these kind of like personal journal vlogs things, talking about like very personal stuff, like kind of you hear me talk about certain things that bother me here and there, and personal issues. I figured like I'll do like a short personal vlog about it, like no longer than maybe like 10-15 minutes, whatever, and like upload it to uh, my Patreon for you guys to just watch to get a little more personal with me. But anyway, I think it's probably very cathartic too on my part too, just to get that out there off my chest. But yeah, I will see you guys. Yeah, well, a little bit later, I'm going to be streaming some games directly on YouTube. As I think, a matter of fact. Uh, uh, well, we'll see. I might just go directly on Twitch. I don't know. I haven't decided. We'll see. But yeah, and look forward to Friday. I'll go back into Marvel Ultimate Alliance, but then uh, uh, Saturday, look forward to Moon Knight spoiler review and season 1 spoiler review, and of course Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. See you guys later. Take care.